We are in Champions League, man.
That was my next
Dilly din,
question.
dilly dong, come on.
Encara Messi, 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 gol, 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 gol.
Into Sheringham, and Solskjaer has won it!
I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
This is the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast with Gary Curneen.
Hello, welcome to the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. My name is Gary Curneen. Joining me for this episode is Joao Nuno Fonseca, UEFA A licensed coach, former first team assistant coach at Nantes in France, coaching methodology analyst for the City Football Group, unbelievable experience in the game and phenomenal level of insight that you are going to hear about in the next 30 minutes. Really excited to have him on the show and looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this one. At Gary Curneen on Twitter, at Gary Curneen on Instagram. This episode is once again sponsored by Total Football Analysis Magazine. Total Football Analysis Magazine is the digital magazine for all soccer fans, coaches, managers and analysts. If you're looking for more detail than a match report but don't want to get bogged down in the numbers and stats, this magazine is for you. May's edition has just gone on sale and you can pick up over 135 pages of pure football tactical analysis, including the endless attacking options of a 3-4-2-1 system, the Gabriel Jesus season review. This one is a personal favourite of mine. Love this article here. Pochettino's continued tactical improvements with Tottenham, and then a little bit of MLS insight on LAFC. You can buy each magazine individually or take out a monthly or annual subscription, which come with some added extras. You can get 10% off annual subscriptions by entering the discount code ModernSoccerCoach at checkout. Head over to totalfootballanalysis.com /magazine to get yours today. Absolutely brilliant magazine. Love it. It takes me about 3 weeks to get through it every month, but absolutely phenomenal insight from around the world, every level. They've got a Women's World Cup one coming up soon as well, so cannot wait to read that there. Look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Here is Fonseca. Enjoy. Fonseca, thank you so much for joining me today on the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. Really excited to have you on.
Hi, Gary. Thank you very much for the invitation. I hope we can have a good conversation and especially to share knowledge with the people.
Fantastic. Yeah, I've just told you before we started recording, I've been a big fan for a few years and thank the Lord every day for Google Translate for your Twitter. So there's plenty of things that I wanted to ask you about your views and thoughts on the game and your experiences of the game. So yeah, I will kick it off with one of your quotes that's a recent one. You do a lot of imaging and you do a lot of, like I said, you were ahead of Coach Paint before anyone else was. You said, I believe more and more in the power of the game image, if possible illustrated for the player to understand why to create exercise for training. Sometimes the player does not realize this concept on the basis of creating an exercise. Can you talk a little bit about how you've come across this way of thinking through experiences and influences?
Well, Gary, it's an interesting question because I was like all the time since I started my professional coaching career in academica, I started to feel that when I was in a training session, sometimes the players didn't understand what is the objective of the exercise. And I start to think how it's possible for the player to understand why this is happening during a training exercise. What kind of objective is this exercise? So I start to think, okay, we have nowadays facility to have a game image. We have the capability also to use the softwares that are in the market to have a better approach in this situation. Why don't use it? And basically, I started to do it also in academica. And then when I moved to Qatar, I started to understand that there is special contexts where the people doesn't understand really what is the game. When I mean what is the game, let's say the moments of the game that composes the game that we can interpret. So basically, especially in Qatar, where the players couldn't understand the moments, I tried to figure out that the images are the best solution for this situation. So if you show an image, a video, to understand what is an attacking organization, I don't know how it calls in US or in Canada, this moment, the offensive organization, I think is the same. Gary, correct me if I'm
It is,
wrong.
yeah.
So basically, if you try to split, let's say, this moment and showing, okay, guys, when the goalkeeper have the ball and there is a goal kick, we are presenting in the first phase of build-up. So what is this? Where is the team position? Where are the center backs? Where are the full backs? Where are the midfielders? So starting from this, the players start to understand that during the game they can read better the game. You know what I mean? So in their minds, they can take better decision if they understand. Okay, we are training in this objective, this exercise, because of this, because of we want to build up from the back, supported by the goalkeeper shortly. So where I need to position myself accordingly to the opponent. For example, I'm giving you examples, random examples. So basically, and I had a big influence, to be honest, in my beginning of career in academic from Professor José Guilherme, that helped me also to put in place these concepts. And more recently with Oscar Cano in Qatar, that for me was the better experience that I had in the past, to be honest.
I use Coach Paint myself, and it's a long process, you know. And some people think, well, the graphics look great, but you know, how important is it to present information to players in a way that they will find interesting and engaging?
Gary, it's important to have in mind something that is not the software that will make you a better. It will make you do a better analysis. The analysis is before you start on Coach Paint. That's what I all the time said to the people, because to use in a good way Coach Paint, you need to understand the game and to make good graphics to represent what you want to transmit. And basically, that's for me is a key point. And after, of course, the software will enhance a lot your presentation for the understanding of the players. But for me, I have a thought all the time that is you need to be always on the side of the player. So adapting your knowledge to, let's say, a modern way of that the information arrive to his hands. So basically, nowadays the player have a smartphone, etc. So a smartphone, an iPad, and this represents how the society lives today. If you want an information from North Korea that what's happening there, you go to your iPhone or Android and you go, and that's it. The information is there. So what is the challenge for the coach to adapt this to this reality? I need that is important to develop and adapt to the culture that you are living, but most of the time you need to be objective to find a proper way to arrive to the mind of the player. That's it. And I can't forget one sentence that Professor Jacques Guilherme told me one time, that is, you can't do longer videos because the focus attention of the player is just 5 minutes maximum. So that's really important, that you present information that is useful for the player, for the squad, and then all the time don't forget the human side, because we are all humans, and if you start to pick up things that doesn't matter, the player will not focus on the attention what you want. So that's for me the big thought that I have in the presentation for the players.
I wanted to ask you about your experiences in France and how the French league differed from the Portuguese league tactically. Were there any specific characteristics that set either league apart?
Well, I found it big difference in terms of interpretation of the game. But before that, Gary, starting from the investment that the French league is doing is massive because it's attracting more and more players, and you will see that even more on the next season. So in starting from the point that the player is higher physically and the capacity that he has is better. I found it that, and the players are more robust, let's say physically. So the big concept, and I think the big difference that I felt was on the way of thinking the game. So basically, for example, on the French league, on the most of the situations, the players just look to the goal. Let's say you recover the ball possession, and you sometimes you don't do a pass back to start the offensive organization. You go immediately to the transition. So for I used to say that for them, less time better to reach the goal. So they are much more vertical rather than in Portugal. In Portugal, we think much more on the game. We think on the way that we will put the ball to reach the sides, to make a cross, and then to make a goal. You know what I mean? So we put different objectives on during the game. And that's why I think here in Portugal and also the Portuguese coaches have a different approach in terms of strategically. I call it operative strategy that we do before we face an opponent.
Just along those lines, then, how do you coach a team who is, if they are more vertical and they want to go forward in the transition, and yet they don't see or aware enough? How do you then help them or challenge them to be a bit more patient, and then to restart the offensive organization, maybe in a different position?
Before that, you need to understand, the players need to understand that they are capable to do that, because it's not just to pass the ball vertical long to in front and make the players run that they can score a goal. If they are capable to do that, and they have the right speed to do that, the right conditions to receive a ball from the air, and all the team are together to reach the last third together, because it's not only the concept that you put the ball in front and go direct to the goal. It's also to defensive line needs to be close to the midfielders line, to don't allow them spaces, because you send the ball long, okay, but if the team are not compact enough to win the second ball, why you are doing that? So you need to understand the concepts before, let's say, you train something. And if the players understand this, how you want to build this kind of patterns, you need to make the players understand, okay, if you have space behind, you need to attack the space. Or if you think that the defensive line, the opponent defensive line, are quicker enough to win this ball, well, it's better to make a pass behind and start to do the offensive organization and go forward, you know? So that's for me the big thought on that.
What are ways that coaches can use opposition analysis and scouting without moving away from their own game model and tactical identity?
I think there is a lack on this thing, Gary, because I have no doubt that if you improve your interpretation as a team of the game, if you understand correctly what is your idea, your game idea, let's say, you are much better prepared to prepare the opponent analysis. You know, so if let's say, okay, analysis of the game, I can say to you, and the people understand that you have you can divide, let's say, two parts of the analysis. One thing is the analysis of the opponent, basically that which serves to anticipate scenarios that may happen in the next game, or you have the analysis of your own team, so which helps to understand why certain moments happen during our own game. And if you can unify, I don't know if this term applies in English, Gary, I think so. If you can unify both information, you are more prepared. So let's say you have done a wonderful switch switch side on the offensive organization in certain game. So you have a good player from the right side that puts the ball long and switch side to the left side of your game. And if you will face a team that will represent a lack of space on the blind side, this is a good information, because you can show an information from something that you had on your game to contrast to something that is a lack, or is a, let's say, negative point from the opponent. You know what I mean? So in this, when you can contrast the informations with what you've done well with the weaknesses of the opponent, I think you are reaching the level that the players like. Because again, it will depend always in what the coaches believe. I believe too much as a coach on this. I believe that if you have a methodology and a dynamic where the player understand why you are doing this, what we will face in this game, working basically on the words why and what we are doing, all the time around this, it will contrast, I believe, better the way of thinking.
Brilliant. So that process of consistency in game models and how it impacts closely to opposition analysis. Would you mind sharing a general overview of what a typical week in a professional club would be for you, beginning with the game finishing perhaps on the Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah, the people need to all the time have in mind where they are working. So what I mean with this is the culture where you are, the country where you are. I faced a different approach when I was in an Arab country, in Qatar, where the habits are different. The players understand the way of living in a different way. So you need first, that's the first step, understand how they work. Mainly during their path to in this environment. So, but again, you need to understand this first, the culture. But let's say in a typical week that you finish a game on Saturday. If I play on a Saturday, I will let's say make an active recovery session on Sunday morning for the players that play 90 minutes. The others make, let's say, an endurance training session during 60, 70 minutes to reach almost the levels of the players that played 90 minutes. In this point, I think it's also important that if the youth teams, under 19s or under 2023, are available to make a game, to have a similar approach on this. Sunday afternoon free, plus the Monday all day, if all the things are going well. If you are winning, of course you can have this benefit also for the players, because we are all humans and we need time also for our families. So restarting on Tuesday with a lower load, readaptation to the effort basically, and that's important for the players to understand what happened on the game, what we can do better, what we will do next day, Wednesday, starting to push, let's say, in terms of strength. Small-sided games, more repetitions for the players, working more on strength, everything with the ball. Gary, it's important to mention this. Thursday, let's say, is the day that you need to put more volume on the training session. Needs to be similar to the game, more intense, an intense session with less stoppages to be more similar to the game. Friday, potentially work on the transition moments of the game, where demands are more related to the speed. And Saturday, lower load, basically, including more defensive set pieces, more creating a strategy that you want, the defensive strategy that you want to put in place if the opponent have more time the ball. And Sunday match again. So, but it's important, Gary, to have in mind that this is not a standard for that works for everyone. It's important for the people to realize where they are working and from where the club where they were working they worked before. Basically, to understand the players, to understand the culture, it's really, really important.
Yeah, staying along those lines, then you said once we train people, that's why it's fundamental to understand who we have in front of us. And do you think sometimes there's a danger of forgetting individual characteristics and just human behaviors in tactical analysis? And can we get carried away in X's and O's?
Yeah, I think this is a key aspect, and that potentially the coaches can lose. But I think this is crucial because when we are training, of course, players that understand football. But before that, they are a person. They have their families, they have their life, they have their problems, and we need to be on them side. Basically, if you are a leader, you are a leader without say that you are a leader. You know, if you are a coach, you are coaching them, but they need to understand that you are on their side also to help them. But again, Gary, it's depend on the kind of players that we have in front of us and how you can deal also with the technology to help you. I thought on now on an example that is common in nowadays life. That is the Instagram videos. You have the Insta story videos. Why not to adapt this kind of technology to what you need? For example, let's say you create a profile like opponents Canada, for example, and then the technical staff invite the players to follow this profile. And then during the week, you put videos from the individual opponents on the stories. They can check, they cannot check. If they check, better, because they will realize that they will improve and face the opponents, and they were better prepared for the game. Basically, it's to adapt for all the time to the way of living that you have nowadays. By default, the player will go to the Instagram daily. You know what I mean? So, and check what's going on, and also check what's going on the news. Why not to check what's going on the next opponent if you are a Instagram user? You know what I mean? So, it's a way for you to adapt your way of living the game and how you live also the technology, and the technology is here to help you. That's for sure.
I'm fascinated by having to adapt to a culture, then the balance of adapting and then also challenging a culture. And what I mean by that is someone that, like, for example, when Jose Mourinho goes to England and when Arsene Wenger goes to England, they challenge the tactical culture of the country. What are some ways that coaches can do that individually? You mentioned a really good one there with the Instagram.
Yeah, well, basically that's it, Gary. You need to adapt in the way that the players live. You cannot think that the player is a robot and he just play football and he just go to the training and then doesn't do nothing. The player get out of the training session and goes to his home and play FIFA. Why not to think in somehow create a scenario from FIFA to represent what you want? I don't know. There is a lot of things in the technology that you can get the most.
Brilliant. You've already started posting about Law 16 and you're looking at ways that the goal kicks from inside the box are going to impact the game. What are the biggest ways that you think that it'll impact it both in and out of possession?
Uh, well, I think the changes will benefit the teams that wants to build up from the back, and this will create more dynamics on the goal kick, especially, and it will benefit a lot the teams that like to have the ball. I think the impact will be more on this on the teams that want to have the ball. And then I think it will be fantastic to see what kind of defensive strategies the teams will face in these to avoid these build-ups, because if you have three players inside the box to start the build-up short, if the opponent comes to press you with four players, imagine the spaces that are behind these four players. So you can play short inside the box and then put a vertical pass to the space behind, and again it will represent a lot on the attacking organization. So I think the impact it will be huge also for the teams that wants to play short from the back.
Finishing up with a few tactical analysis questions. In your experience, how important is the use of analytics and then statistics to back up your views of watching and analysing the game?
For me, Gary, the statistics confirm what I can interpret from the qualitative vision that I have from the game. So if I'm able to interpret the moment of the game, the quantitative side, it will confirm some things that I can say. I never use the statistics as a starting point. To be honest, as a coach, I go all the time to see the match, and I see what I can prepare from what I see, what kind of exercise I can prepare to face this situation from the opponent, and then the statistic can help me on the speech that I can give to the players, because a game is different from another one. All the time the game is different, and if you can't say that a certain kind of numbers will happen again on the same game. It's impossible, because the game is chaotic and you can't predict some things that comes from the statistics. So for me, it's more clear to see the patterns from the opponent, and if you have a way to see the patterns on the build-up, for example, on the second phase of build-up, and that's for me the most important to interpret the game. And again, for me, Gary, the numbers just confirm what I interpret on the qualitative side of the game.
So you never look at a stat sheet before watching the game and kind of getting your views then. It's always view, watch, study, and get those moments that you're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I make the inverse, basically. I don't start from the numbers. I start from where I can get the most from to prepare my work. That is from interpretation of the game, to see why the team is doing this because of this. Mm-hmm. Why the team is producing more from the right side, because maybe the opponent have a lack on their left side and they are producing more in this side. Okay, if the numbers tells you this, perfect. It confirms what you see.
Mm-hmm. How many games should a coach watch of a team in order to gain an understanding or an appreciation of their playing style?
Well, I think it's important to watch games that you will play in the context and with the teams that are on the similar level. Because if you watch team with a big difference in terms of way of playing or in terms of quality of playing, it will not be the same. So I believe that 3-5 games in the context, like say that you will face a certain opponent, or to understand the playing style of the team, it will be enough to take notes on that.
What's your advice for young coaches who do not have access or a budget for, the certain types of software that are out there, or coaches that are starting with basically a video camera and that's all?
Gary, if you can take the notes of the times when you have an interpretation of the game, so if you, in the first 10 minutes, you understand that there is two offensive transitions, that you have a note. So you cut let's say in the standard softwares that comes on the Mac, in the iMovie, in the Windows, I can't remember the name in the Windows because I work mainly on Macintosh in my daily work. But the basic softwares can help you to cut the videos, and you have programs like Longo Match, Coach's Eye for an iPad. That it helps a lot to present the videos for the players, and I think it's the cheaper option.
The relationship between an analyst and a head coach, it can be difficult where you have different views of the games and different views of training exercises and the things that we think are relevant and not. Curious to get your thoughts, or what are ways in which an analyst can help support the head coach but also challenge them?
If mainly the head coach, I used to say when the head coach doesn't have any time to go to see a match, the analyst is the eyes of the coach, and basically the analyst needs to see the game as the coach see or try to. If that happens, if the coach wants more examples, you all the time need to be prepared for this. I like too much to ask if a certain team is doing this. Please check if there is any other teams doing the same or similar things. For example, let's say the build up from the back from Man City. What kind of teams make different situations like make similar situations like Man City do? And you start to see other things, and you can, in this situation, support the head coach with different views on the same principle, on the same context that you want to talk. So that's for me the thought, Gary.
Fantastic, fantastic. And then the last one for you: what are some teams or some coaches today that you won't miss games for, or that you enjoy watching, or that inspire you?
Well, there is not too many because you see a lot of teams nowadays trying to have a good pattern of playing. But well, Man City for me is in the top of the list, of course. I've worked with City Football Group in 2017-18, and I understand a lot their vision in terms of way of playing. But you have other teams, and I'm remembering Hoffenheim. Nagelsmann is doing a wonderful job there. He's a young coach that is implementing a good way of play the football. You have Hoffenheim, you have Betis from Spain that made a huge job. Quique Setien made a huge job on the team. You have Napoli from Carlo Ancelotti to see in terms of more defensive side how we prepare the teams on that. Chelsea from Sarri is also brilliant. So different teams that produces very good way of playing football.
What advice would you have for a young coach who maybe is favoring, or he or she is favoring the analysis side and looking to move on up and support with head coaches in that area of the game? What advice would you have for them to get better and improve?
As much as you see football, more games football, you start to have different opinions, and more if you have more opinions, better, because like Johan Cruyff said one time. The most beautiful thing that we do in our job is to play. In this case, if you are a coach, is to coach your team. But what makes more close to that sensation feeling is the training. And if you can all the time make an interpretation about what is happening on a certain training exercise and try to see that on the game, make this exercise. Okay, we work this on the training session. In this exercise, this happen on the game or not? So try to figure out how is this possible to happen, and have an interpretation all the time on different games, different cultures, different way of thinking of football. I think we all the time are improving. For me, I'm all the time learning from different teams, from different coaches, from a good conversation with an head coach. So that's it. And it's a big challenge, to be honest, Gary, to have to pass, let's say, to have a transfer from an analyst to a coach. I made this. I've worked with during 7 years as an analyst, and now I'm facing the challenge on the coaching, because in the beginning of my career I was a coach, and then I went to the analysis to have a good interpretation of the game. So, and it helped me a lot now to develop exercises adapted to the context of the game. I think this is key all the time, to adapt what you see on the game and try to adapt in an exercise for the players understand better.
Fonseca, thank you so much. What a great way to finish it. I cannot thank you enough for your time and everything you do for the coaching community, all that hard work.
Thank you, Gary. For me, it's a pleasure to share knowledge. I have a thought that all the time that I can share better, because it's like, let's say in the medicine, if you found a cure for something, if you share it, more people will be benefit on this. So I think if in the coaching community the people have this kind of thoughts, sharing knowledge, sharing an exercise, it's much better for us, because we can put more questions in our head to different things. And I made this in the last years on my Facebook page. I do it with pleasure, to be honest, Gary. And for me, it's an honor to be in conversation with you, to share knowledge with people. And if the people that are listening have some question, have some doubt, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm here to help. I'm here, and I try every time to answer to the people, and that's it.
Fantastic. Fonseca, thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you to Fonseca for his time and his insight there. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Different level of insight, different level of how you can get that information to the players. And the two things that stood out for me, among many, was two quotes from number one: you need to always be on the side of the player, adapting your knowledge to the modern way of getting information into someone's hands. And for me, with all the new tactical analysis today, with all the new coaching terms, the coaching jargon, the access we have to new levels of thinking, different sources of information, it's almost that coaches are looking towards players as well. They're not students of the game. They don't love it as much as we do. You know, they're not like the generation that we were. They don't watch enough football. If I had $1 for every time I heard that there. And he's just approaching it in a different way. This is a man that has worked at the top level, but he puts the player at the forefront, and not just the player at the forefront, but his responsibility to get the information to the player in a way that the player will consume it. And nothing was more powerful than the Instagram example. How many coaches would be open to putting a scouting report on Instagram for their players? But how many coaches just look at social media as it's a distraction for players, or, you know, I'm not doing things on social media, it's dangerous and you don't want to be putting stuff out there. And it just gets you thinking. And then the other one was, if you improve your interpretations of the game as a team, you are better prepared for opposition analysis. If you can unify your information, you are more prepared. And to me, that's really, really important. And I thought that was the real insight from me that I enjoyed in that interview, was how much he referred, how clear he was in the moments of the game, how confident he was in the differences between the Portuguese league and the French league, and then, you know, how much he then wanted to help the players to understand that side of it. And once you start conveying that there, I listened to an interview with Fergus Connolly, and this was a This was a couple of years ago, and he was talking that you should use the same language in your scouting reports than you do in your staff meetings and you do in your training reports, because if that is a game model, if it is a true game model, then the language should be the same, the 4 moments should be clear. That's how you improve players' interpretation of it. That's how you improve tactical awareness. There's nothing like a scouting report or a meeting on the opposition that is a completely different setup than what the players are used to themselves, and then they can interpret it then whatever way they want. Oh, we do more than the opposition than we do for ourselves, or is that consistent what we do? And sometimes we move away from that, because again, there's a lot of noise with the pressure of playing match after match after match after match. It's very, very difficult to be consistent in your processes. But what I took away there was, Fonseca is very, very clear, very confident, and because of that it allows him to communicate his vision a lot more clear than a lot of us can. So we'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I thought that was different class, and was really excited to get him on, and I thought he was outstanding. So yeah, love to hear your thoughts. At Gary Curneen on Twitter, at Gary Curneen on Instagram. Before you go, don't forget, check out Total Football Analysis magazine. This month's edition is different class. Like I said at the start, the article on Gabriel Jesus is top class. So much detail to his movement and what he brings to the game. So loved it. Would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks. Have a great week. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to the Modern Soccer Coach Podcast. For more coaching topics, sessions, and resources, head on over to Coach Curneen on Facebook or visit the website at www.modernsoccercoach.com.